Let's see if this is the final part of the World Bible, edited by Robert O. Ballou, the Hindu. From the Works of Sri Ramakrishna. Many paths to the one God. You see many stars in the night. At night, in the sky, I find them not when the sun rises. How can you say that there are no stars in the heaven of the day? So, O man, because you behold not God in the days of your ignorance, say not that there is no God. As one and the same material, water is called by different names by different people. One calling it water, another Eau, a third aqua, another pani. The one Sat Chit Ananda, the everlasting intelligent bliss, is invoked by the same God, by some as Allah, some as Jehovah, Yahweh, some as Hari, and others as Brahman. As one can ascend to the top of a house by means of a ladder, or a bamboo, or a staircase, or a rope, so diverse are the ways and means to approach God, and every religion in the world shows one of these ways. Different creeds are but different paths to reach the Almighty. Various and different are the ways that lead to the temple of Mother Kali at Kalighat, Calcutta. Similarly, various are the ways that lead to the house of the Lord. Every religion is nothing but one of such paths that lead to God. As the young wife in a family shows her love and respect to her father-in-law, mother-in-law, and every other member of the family, and at the same time loves her husband more than these, similarly being firm in thy devotion to the deity of one's own choice, Ishta Devata, because people typically worship angels, do not despise other deities, but honor them all. Now you can respect without worship. Bow down and worship where others kneel, for where so many have been paying the tribute of adoration, the kind Lord must manifest himself, for he is all merciful. Well, be careful where you offer your sacrifices and offerings and stuff. But don't stop worshiping just because you go by a place or you're in a place that you don't agree with some of what's going on. The Satchitananda has many forms. The devotee has seen God in one aspect only, knows him in that aspect alone. But he who has seen him in manifold aspects is alone in a position to say, all these forms are of one God, and God is multiform. He is formless and without form, and many are his forms, which no one knows. The Vedas, Tantras, and the Puranas, and all the sacred scriptures of the world have become as if defiled, as food thrown out of the mouth becomes polluted, because they have been constantly repeated by and have come out of human mouths. But the Brahman, or the Absolute, has never been defiled. So no one as yet has been able to express it by human speech. Now, there is revelation, but virtually everything labeled as revelation is not, or it's like, well, they don't even know. Say Joseph Smith had the experiences that he claims to have had. Well, he couldn't get his details straight. And there were details, and there are different sources of revelation too, by the way. The magnetic needle always points towards the north, and hence it is that sailing vessel does not lose her course, so long as the heart of man is directed towards God. He cannot be lost in the ocean of worldliness. And verily I say unto thee, he who longs for him finds him. Go and verify in this, in thine own life. Try for 3 consecutive days with genuine earnestness, and thou art sure to succeed. God cannot be seen so long as there is the slightest taint of desire. Therefore have thy small desires satisfied, and renounce the big desires by right reasoning and discrimination. Knowledge and love of God are ultimately one and the same. There is no difference between pure knowledge and pure love. The Master said, everything that exists is God. The pupil understood it literally, but not in the right spirit. While he was passing through the street, he met an elephant. The driver shouted aloud from his high place, "Move away, move away." The people argued in his mind, "Why should I move away? I am God." So is the elephant God? What fear has God of himself? Thinking this, thus he did not move. At last the elephant took him up in his trunk and dashed him aside. He was hurt severely, and going back to his master, he related the whole adventure. The master said, "All right, you are God. The elephant is God also. But God in the shape of the elephant driver was warning you from above. Why did you not pay attention to his warning? The Avatara, or Savior, is the message of God. He is, the messenger of God, Rasulullah. He is like the viceroy of a mighty monarch. He is like the viceroy of a mighty monarch. As when there is some disturbance in a far-off province, the king sends his viceroy to quell it. So whenever there is a decline in religion in any part of the world, God sends his avatara there, which is now an unnecessary thing, because enough has remained from the last Nabi. It is one and the same avatara that, having plunged into the ocean of life, rises up in one place and is known as Krishna, light. And dividing down again, rises up in another place and is known as Christ. So people fanatically know God by the mask of the messenger that sent it, that reminded us. On the tree of the absolute existence, knowledge, bliss, Sat, Chit, Ananda, there having innumerable Ramas, Krishnas, Buddhas, Christ, etc., out of which one or two come down to this world now and then, and produce mighty changes and revolutions. They send a messenger. They're not the messenger, but anyways. Ornaments cannot be made, the Greek term for fanaticism is you mistake the teacher for the God, or you mistake the temple for the God. I've met people who don't pray. If they have set rituals, they don't say them where they're at. Fine, leave the bathroom or whatever. But no, they only say them in a house of worship, or they only say them in that special corner of their home or something, or some part of their property or something. But they don't say them in public, which is a problem. Now and then to produce mighty, out of which one or two come down to this world now and then to produce mighty changes and revolutions. I'm sorry, I think I lost count of my place. Ornaments cannot be made of pure gold. Some alloy must be mixed with it. A man totally devoid of Maya will not survive more than 21 days. So long as the man has a body, he must have some Maya, however small it may be, to carry on the functions of the body. Now, I completely disagree. Humans do not have to have delusion or ignorance. That can be put upon them. There's a difference between ignorance and not knowing. There's a difference between delusion and, well, I just don't know, so I'm going to keep quiet. Hast thou got, O preacher, the badge of authority, as the humblest servant of the king, authorized by him, is heard with respect and awe, and quell the riot by showing his badge, so must thou, O preacher, obtain first the order and inspiration from God, whether direct or nowadays, through the revealed book, through the book of nature, through the book of ourselves. But let's not pretend that every sort of interpretation we're looking at is really an inspiration of God. So long as thou hast not this badge of divine inspiration, thou mayest preach all thy life, but only in vain. Thou mayest preach all thy life, but only in vain. What is the true preaching like? Instead of preaching it to others, if one worships God all that time, that is enough preaching. He who strives to make himself free is the real preacher. Hundreds come from all sides, no one knows whence. To him who is free are taught by him. When a rosebud blooms, the bees come from all sides, uninvited and unasked. Throw an unbaked cake of flour into hot butter, it will make a sort of boiling noise. But the more it is fried, the less becomes the noise, and when it is fully fried, the bubbling ceases altogether. So long as a man has little knowledge, he goes about lecturing and preaching, but when the perfection of knowledge is obtained, man ceases to make vain displays. Don't mention God's name in vain. The seeds of Vajrabantul do not fall to the bottom of the tree. They are carried by the winds far off and take root there. So the spirit of a prophet manifests itself at a distance, and he is appreciated there. The sunlight is one and the same wherever it falls, but only bright surfaces like water, mirrors, and polished metals can reflect it fully. So is the divine light. It falls equally and impartially on all hearts, but only the pure and clean hearts of the good and holy can fully reflect it. Every man should follow his own religion. A Christian should follow Christianity. A Mohammedan, well, a Muslim, hopefully, should follow Mohammedanism, well, Islam, hopefully, and so on. For the Hindus, the ancient path, the path of the Aryan Rishis, is the best. Well, let's not be confused and think that everything called Hinduism goes back as far as we think. Some of it's even modern. People partition off their lands by means of boundaries, but no one can partition off the all-embracing sky overhead. The indivisible sky surrounds all and includes all. So common man and ignorant says, my religion is the only one. My religion is the best. But when his heart is illuminated by true knowledge, he knows that above all these wars of sects and sectarian presides the one, indivisible, eternal, all-knowing bliss. As a mother, in nursing her sick children, gives rice and curry to one, and sagu arrowroot to another, and bread and butter to a third, so the Lord has laid out on different paths for different men, suitable to their natures. Dispute not, as you rest firmly on your own faith and opinion. Allow others the equal liberty to stand by their own faiths and opinions. By more disputation, you will never succeed in convincing another of his error. When the grace of God descends on him, each one will understand his own mistakes. So long as the bee is outside the petals of the lily and has not tasted the sweetness of its honey, it hovers round the flower, emitting its buzzing sound. But when it is inside the flower, it noisily drinks its nectar. So long as a man quarrels and disputes about the doctrines and dogmas, he has not tasted the nectar of true faith. When he has tasted it, he becomes quiet and full of peace. People of this age care for the essence of everything. They will accept the essential of religion and not its non-essentials, that is, the rituals, ceremonies, dogmas, and creeds. Well, the man-made ones, anyways. Honor spirit and form, both sentimental within and symbol without. Common men talk bagfuls of religion, but act not a grain of it, while the wise man speaks little, but his whole life is a religion acted out. What you wish others to do, do yourself. The tender bamboo can be easily bent, but the full-grown bamboo breaks when attempt is made to bend it. It is easy to bend young hearts towards God, but the heart of the old escapes the hold when so drawn. Now, psychology tells us that to our very end, we have the ability to change our beliefs and practices. We even have the ability to get smarter and stuff. Even stroke victims end up gaining in intelligence sometimes, but you can't expect damage to make you better. But you got to be gentle when approaching people. This idea of breaking people and then replacing their beliefs is, no. That's why in my 45-part series and the papers that I wrote for the New Age Religion series, I'm not just, well, this is wrong because of this, and here's the court cases that show what's going on, and, I do more than that. I do more than say, well, I don't believe the same thing. It's like, well, it's not a war of, I believe this, and you should believe this, and, But try to make your religion something, it's like this page. Most of what I do is not on here, Most of what I do that's explicitly religious is never going to end up on my social media platforms. Even if I'm producing videos every day, it's still, this is a minority of people. And I expect, I ask of you people to do likewise. You may have stuff you do publicly, but for the most part, it's private or wherever it is, Those who live in the world and try to find salvation are like soldiers in fight, protected by the breastwork of a fort, while the ascetics who renounce the world in search of God are like soldiers fighting in the open field. To fight from within the fort is more convenient and safer than to fight in the open field. The spiritual gain of a person depends upon his sentiments and ideas, proceeds from his heart and not from his visible actions. Two friends, while strolling about, happened to pass by a place where Bhagavad, the word of God, was being preached. One of them said, "Brother, let us go there for a while and hear the good word spoken." The other replied, "No, friend, what is the use of hearing the Bhagavatam?" The Bhagavata Purana. I haven't talked much about that one, have I? Well, I'll talk in detail at some point. Let us spend time in yonder public house in amusement and pleasure. First one did not consent to this. We went to the place where the Bhagavatam was being read, and began to hear it. The other went to the public house, but did not find the pleasure that he had anticipated there, and was thinking all the while, "Alas me, why have I come here? How happy is my friend, hearing all the while the sacred life and deeds of Hari, Lord." Thus he meditated on Hari, even though in a public house. The other man who was hearing in the Bhagavatam also did not find pleasure in it. Sitting there, he began to blame himself, saying, "Alas, why did I not accompany my friend to the public house? What a great pleasure he must be enjoying at this time there." The result was that he who was sitting where the Bhagavatam was preached meditated on the pleasure of the public house and acquired the fruit of the sin of going to the public house because of his bad thoughts, while the man who had gone to the public house acquired the merit of hearing the Bhagavatam preached because of his good heart. Isn't the Bhagavatam sort of a lesson in fanaticism? In that it's, it mistakes 24 people as being incarnations of God. A wife once spoke to her husband, saying, "My dear, I am anxious about my brother. For the last few days he has been thinking of renouncing the world and becoming a sannyasin, and has begun preparations for it. He has been gradually trying to curb his desires and reduce his wants." The husband replied, "You need not be anxious about your brother. He will never become a sannyasin. No one has ever renounced the world by making long preparations." The wife asked, "How, then, does one become a sannyasin?" The husband answered, "Do you wish to see how one renounces the world? Let me show you." Saying this, he instantly tore his flowing dress into pieces, tied one piece around his loins, told his wife that she and all women were henceforth his mother, and left the house never to return. Now, Islam treats the divorce by insult very seriously. How's that phrase with you're back. No, I don't remember exactly how to say, because they say, Arabs would say, "You're like my mother's back," and in other words, I don't want anything sexual to do with you. But Islam corrected that. If I hold up this cloth before me, you will not see me any more. Though I shall be as near you, so also God is nearer to you than anything else. Yet because of the screen of egotism, you cannot see him. Egotism. Egoism. Okay. That's why I said it wrong. If you find that you cannot make this I go, then let it remain as the servant I. There is not much fear of mischief in the I which knows itself, as I am the servant of God. I am his devotee. Sweets beget dyspepsia, but the crystallized sugar candy is not among the sweets, for it has not that injurious property. The servant I, the eye of a devotee, or the eye of a child, is like the line drawn with a stick on a sheet of water. It does not last long. If you feel proud, feel so in the thought that you are the servant of God, the Son of God. Great men have the nature of children. They are always children before God, so they have no egotism. All their strength is of God, belonging to and coming from him, nothing of themselves. They are two egos, one ripe and the other unripe. Nothing is mine. Whatever I see, feel, or hear, nay, even this body, is not mine. I am always eternal, free, and all-knowing. The ego that has this idea is the ripe one, while the unripe ego is that which thinks, this is my house, my child, my wife, my body, etc. When shall I be free? When the I has vanished. I and mine is ignorance. Thou and thine is true knowledge. The true devotee always says, O Lord, thou art the door. Thou doest everything. I am only a machine. I do whatever thou makest me to do, and all this is thy glory. This home and this family are thine, not mine. I have only the right to serve as thou ordainest. When the knowledge of self is gained, all fetters fall off themselves. There is no distinction between a Brahmana and a Sudra, a high caste or low caste. In that state the sacred thread sign of caste falls away of itself, but so long as a man has the consciousness of distinction and difference, he should not forcibly throw it off. The spiritual-minded belong to a caste of their own, irrespective of all social conventions. When a man is on the plains, he sees the lowly grass and the mighty pine tree and says, how big is the tree and how small is the grass. But when he ascends the mountain and looks from its high peak on the plain below, the mighty pine tree and the lowly grass blend into one indistinguishable mass of green verdure. So is the sight of the worldly. There are differences of rank and position. One is king, another is a cobbler, one a father, another a son, and so on. But when the divine sight is open, all appear as equal and one, and there remains no distinction of good and bad, high and low. When I look upon chaste women of respectable families, I see in them the divine mother, arrayed in the garb of a chaste lady. And again, when I look upon the public women of the city sitting in their verandas, arrayed in the garb of immortality and shamelessness, I see in them also the divine mother sporting in a different way. Now, different metaphors manifest themselves differently now, don't they? Man is like a pillowcase. The color of the one may be red, that of another blue, that of a third black, but all contain the same cotton. So it is with man. One is beautiful, another is black, a third holy, a fourth wicked, but the divine one dwells within them all. If you fill an earthen vessel with water and set it apart upon a shelf, the water in it will dry up in a few days. But if you place the same vessel immersed in water, it will remain filled as long as it is kept there. Even so is the case with your love of the Lord God. Fill and enrich your bosom with the love of God for a time, and then employ yourself in other affairs, forgetting him all the while, and then you are sure to find within a short time that your heart has become poor, and vacant and devoid of that precious love. But if you keep your heart immersed, always in the ocean of divine love, your heart is sure to remain ever full, to overflowing with water of the divine love. A man, after 14 years' penance in a solitary forest, obtained at last the power of walking on water. Overjoyed at this, he went to his guru and said, Master, Master, I have acquired the power of walking on water. The master rebukingly replied, Fie, O child, this is the result of thy 14 years' labors. Verily thou hast obtained only that which is worth a penny. For what thou hast accomplished after 14 years' arduous labor, ordinary men do by paying a penny to the boatman. So long as one does not become simple like a child, one does not get divine illumination. Forget all the worldly knowledge that thou hast acquired and become as ignorant as a child, and thou wilt get the divine wisdom. So be humble more than austere. The Saint and Saviors. A place was enclosed by means of a high wall. The men outside it did not know what sort of place it was. Once 4 persons determined to find out what was inside it by scaling the wall with the ladder. As soon as the first man ascended to the top of the wall, he laughed out, Ha ha ha, and jumped in. The second also was, as soon as he ascended, similarly laughed aloud and jumped in. So did the third. When the fourth and last man got up to the top of the wall, he found stretched beneath him a large and beautiful garden containing pleasant groves and delicious fruits. Though strongly tempted to jump down and enjoy the scene, he resisted the temptation, and coming down the ladder, preached the glad tidings about the beautiful garden to all outsiders. The Brahman is like the walled garden. He who sees it forgets his own existence, and with ecstatic joy rushes headlong in to attain moksha, or absolute freedom. Such are the holy men and liberated saints of the world. But the saviors of humanity are those who see God, and being at the same time anxious to share their happiness of divine vision with others, refuse the final liberation, moksha, and willingly undergo the troubles of rebirth in the world in order to teach and lead struggling humanity to its ultimate goal, the protection of God. A jnani, knower of God, and a premika, lover of God. Knower of God, lover of God. Okay. Once were passing through a forest. On the way they saw a tiger at a distance. The jnani said, There is no reason why we should flee. The Almighty God will certainly protect us. At this, the premika said, No, brother, come, let us run away. Why should we trouble the Lord for what we can be accomplished by our own exertions? The converted snake. We are our own snake of light and sound inside this body. Or at least our psyche is, operated by our soul. A snake dwelt in a certain place. No one dared to pass by that way. Whoever did so was instantaneously bitten to death. Once a Mahatman, think of Mahanta and such terms, high-souled one, passed by that road, and the serpent ran after the sage in order to bite him. But when the snake approached the holy man, he lost all his ferocity and was overpowered by the gentleness of the yogin. Seeing the snake, the sage said, Well, friend, seekest thou to bite me? The snake was abashed and made no reply. At this the sage said, Hearken, friend, do not injure anybody in the future. The snake bowed and nodded assent. The sage went his own way, and the snake entered his hole, and thenceforward began to live a life of innocence and purity without even attempting to harm anyone. In a few days, all the neighborhood began to think that the snake had lost all his venom and was no more dangerous, so everyone began to tease him. Some pelted him, others dragged him mercilessly by the tail, and in this way there was no end to his troubles. Fortunately, the sage again passed by that way, and seeing the bruised and battered condition of the good snake, was very much moved and inquired the cause of his distress. At this the snake replied, Holy sir, this is because I do not injure anyone after your advice, but alas, they are so merciless. The sage, smiling, said, My dear friend, I simply advise you not to bite anyone, but I did not tell you not to frighten others. Although you should not bite any creature, still you should keep everyone at a considerable distance by hissing at him. Similarly, if thou livest in the world, make thyself feared and respected. Do not injure anyone, unlawfully. But be not at the same time injured by others. Remember, follow the rules of the plane. Physical, astral, causal, mental, etheric, soul planes, spirit plane, whatever you call the levels of existence, the aspects of God. Be not like Ganata Karna in thy bigotry. There was a man who worshipped Shiva, but hated all other deities. One day Shiva appeared to him and said, I shall never be pleased with thee so long as thou hatest the other gods. But the man was inexorable. After a few days Shiva again appeared to him and said, I shall never be pleased with thee so long as thou hatest. The man kept silent. After a few days Shiva again appeared to him. This time he appeared as Harihar, namely, one side of his body was that of Shiva, and the other side of Vishnu. The man was half pleased and half displeased. He laid his offerings on the side representing Shiva and did not offer anything to the side representing Vishnu. Then Shiva said, Thy bigotry is unconquerable. I, by assuming this dual aspect, tried to convince thee that all gods and goddesses are but various aspects of the one absolute Brahman. So, don't be afraid to hate with a full heart, but according to principle. Love with a full heart, but according to principle. Hope with a full heart, but according to principle. Fear with a full heart, but according to principle. And realize that whatever name you use, there are others. Do it all for God, and emotion, inflection, experience, it all becomes secondary. And even in doing more, life becomes easier. Om.